Lochoya sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda belge drolor zampe ze parche pande alame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timunisha Saneka Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajradhara Suma Timunisha Saneka Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajradhara Suma Timunisha Saneka Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo Varsa Manya Guru Vajradhara Suma Timunisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Sikso So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Songge Nawa Tsedo So Seje Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dejen Korlo Vesu Lekshune Yela Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lunge Drupra Chingelo Tsoni Sodan Diktun Shakpe Tse Dungi Namke Yinsu Lekshune Lapchen tsonyi yonso zopa dan chera nye dun chamra chingelo chancho parge ninsen tukun tu nyo peme siudru lekshune chancho drube gegen kunshi shi tungen de la drubra chingelo dagelo na chola chokpa dan chomin samjur ngemba shiv chodan tumbe dudun malupa beme lunge drubra chingelo dorna tengne tsera tamche dan Techi pardone kab tamche tu rese kyamne lama keleme tukje chengi dala sikso solo gongyab drewe nyamda dachala jetsun lame tuje rab gongne kudan sungi nawa dralme tu nyamsu nyongwe kesan topra sho kewa kuntu yanda lama dang drame cheki pela longche chi sadan lamge yente rabzone dorje changi kopang Nyur tobe sho pakyu ke kudan dagi alu pakyu ke sundan dagi nga pakyu ke tukdan dagi ye ten yerme chiktu chingi alu makyu ke kudan Lo ma kyu ke sundan da ge nga ma kyu ke tukdan da ge ye ten yer me chiktu chingi lo Shakyamuni Swo gate paragate parasamgate bodhisattva hayatayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisattva. Sashipu ki choshimeto Chamare Rabalinga Shi Nide Gyampa Sange Shinto Mikte Ulwarki Drokun Da Shing La Chopar Shoyedam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayami Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Janchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Janchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Jancho Pardo Dani Kyaps Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo ya lai ke da lu da ne jin ke rubun da mi ke nam da ruwa kun ke janam che tsampa tham che ke tu da ge che ten to tham che ke tu da ge che ten to. Buongiorno.
Good morning. One of the great qualities that we have as human beings, and also other animals have them in different ways, is the fact that we have this ability to transmit to one person, from one person to another, knowledge and experience. We can hand down this knowledge and experience. If we look at the things we do today, the things that we're able to understand and to do, it's the accumulation of knowledge and experience from generation to generation, from generations. So little by little, over time, from one generation to the next, we hand down this information. If we had to start from nothing, from scratch, we'd still be, we wouldn't even understand how to plant something. I mean, we would be even before the Bronze Age. Because we have this ability to learn, and we try, and we, try through trial and error, and we do things, we understand something, we unite some information, knowledge with another, and we expand our understanding about things. And we have this incredible ability to bring the experience of others from the past with us. And I mean, look, art, poetry, medicine, architecture, in the spiritual realm, regardless of where you look, this ability of being able to transmit and little by little bring that knowledge forth for thousands of years. There's many things we just take for granted, but this is knowledge that is very antique, ancient. When I was studying Tibetan calendar, for example, I started asking myself, why do we have four? Why is the month divided into weeks? Why was it divided into four parts? In Tibet, it was done like that. In India, it was done like that. In Mesopotamia, it was like that. I mean, this is knowledge that is really ancient and then handed down from generation to generation. And in the Buddhist transmission, it's really important to have this awareness and gratitude. So if I want to do something, I can't do it by myself, no matter how much I believe that I'm self-taught. This very strange idea. A self-taught person, in the end, does he use books? Does he or she watch videos? That's not really self-taught, is it? Someone who's really self-taught means someone who, without any kind of input, is able to understand and develop some kind of knowledge, and that's almost impossible. So we receive, and it's for that reason that when we receive knowledge, first of all, we need to understand where it comes from. That's why we use the analogy of drinking water from a mountain river. If you do that, you need to be sure about two things: that the water comes from a pure source, that comes like a glacier or a snowy, pure part of the mountain, or an actual source. And the second thing, that it from there to here, it hasn't been polluted. This is fundamental. This means that concept, that knowledge that we're going to receive, is initially came from someone who really understood it well, and then from there to here hasn't been misunderstood. Because as we transfer information, we're handing down a worldview and our own paradigms, and that perception is not always, it doesn't always correspond to the original. So, and it's maybe not even healthy. A lot that we receive is not actually healthy. So it's really important to see where it comes from, and there are ways to do that. If someone wants to transmit, or has this possibility to transmit to me something that has to do with a mental stability, my first question is that person mentally stable, himself or herself? He could say that he has the best methods, but the person who transmitted isn't mentally stable. So either that person has only theoretical knowledge and no experience, or his methods don't work. So in Buddhism, when we talk about lineage, and along our research, we can trust someone who has this knowledge that is coherent, is correct, is pure. And today we wanted to dedicate this day to the memory of the Master Keiko. When I met her, she was actually this. I mean, she taught many things, and she taught a lot more, but she also taught martial arts, and she was really the example that it works. She was 90. She was 90 when I met her, and that short time, just a few days I was able to spend with her. And in that short time I saw someone who was balanced, who knew how to use her energies well, to relate to other people. And of course, she had a level of experience and a knowledge that wasn't only conceptual. And one of the things that really touched me, she was 90 years old and maybe a meter 50 tall. She was able to, put, really, really big men to the floor. And so so for example, there was someone she said, come and try to put me to the ground. And no, really try. And when he really tried to get her to the ground, she in 3 seconds had him pinned to the floor and holding his hand, and he's crying, no, stop. So men try to do things with their muscles. Instead, women have a greater understanding of this chi, this prana, this energy, call it what you want, but she's someone who was really able to manage this energy. And I thought, how wonderful, amazing to get to that age with this physical strength, this mental clarity, and this came from training. The training, she showed us, if you repeat this over and over again over time, then you will have results. So it's important for us to have these examples. Today I wanted to give this transmission dedicated to her, and a very brief commentary on the Heart Sutra. When we say Heart Sutra, it's a teaching of Buddha that's very present in Tibet, but also in China, Japan, etc. It's heart as understood as the essence. It actually, if we were to give a more precise translation, the name would be the heart of the essence of the perfection of wisdom. So Ningpo in Tibetan doesn't actually mean heart, means essence. But Ning alone means heart. Ningpo means the essence. Even in our language, we say like the heart. When we talk about the heart of something, this is the heart of something. We mean it's the essence. So it's not the sutra that talks about the heart. It's the sutra that talks about the essence of what? Of the perfection of wisdom. Buddha Shakyamuni gave many teachings in his lifetime, and they can be divided into three main categories. One is the part of morality. that has to do with the behavior. There we talk about the generosity, morality, the part that has to do with the meditation too, but mostly it has to do with the physical, verbal, mental conduct, how to develop love towards ourselves, towards others. This is that first part of the first category. And then that second part is concentration, that has to do with the meditative state. And then there's a third part that has to do with wisdom, how to change, transform our paradigm, how we not how we see the world, but how we live the world. We change the way to see it, to change the way to live it, change the actual paradigm. And that category would be the perfection of wisdom, or how to perfect wisdom, or the wisdom that's gone beyond, or wisdom that has gone beyond suffering. So even here the word perfection is not the best choice. It's paramita in Sanskrit, in Tibetan parchen. In Tibetan we use it in two contexts. Parchen is that which has gone beyond, what is going beyond, and also what has gone beyond, what is going beyond, and that which brings to beyond, to the beyond what? Beyond ignorance and beyond suffering. And Buddha gave these teachings in many, many moments of his life, and then they were then written down. Let's remember that his sutras were written about 300 years after his death, and during his lifetime it was only oral. People would repeat what they heard. They had an amazing memory at the time, and for 300 years those who talked about those teachings, those teachings corresponded well, and then at a certain point it started deviating a little bit, and so they wrote it all down. So the written sutras, today there's one that's there's the version that's very long, is 100,000 verses. Then there's the 20,000 of that 20,000 verse sutra. Then there's the 8,000 verses. There's actually one also of 10,000, but the 8,000 verse sutra is more well known. Then there's also a shorter verse, the shorter sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and then the Sutra of the Essence called the Heart Sutra, which we have here in this little pamphlet. Just in a few pages we have both the phonetic, the translation, and Tibetan. So then the long version of this is 100,000 verses. So we can't expect to understand everything with this essential version, but at the same time, this version of essence helps us understand longer sutras, because in the longer sutras we see that there's a repetitive aspect. Things are just said and resaid in many different ways. And when you read these sutras, at least for me, I've seen sometimes it could be a little tiresome because the same thing is just repeated in so many different ways. But I think it's also a kind of meditation where one, by repeating one little by little, it's the wrong term to use, but we can call it a kind of positive brainwashing. We're familiarizing ourselves with a concept. But so let's try to go just to the essence. So I'd like to start from the essence of the essence, which is, there are many different ways. that the Heart Sutra can be explained, but I'd like to start from the mantra, which is the essence of the Sutra of the Essence. The mantra, and here we have it in this pamphlet. It's on page 11. Tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha. But given that I've talking about the importance of the uninterrupted transmission, before we start with the actual commentary, we'll start with the transmission. So everything at the time of Buddha, everything was given orally. So there was an oral transmission, and those present, they received that, and then they were ready to then transmit it to another. And this tradition is alive. Let's just say that being able to transmit everything we've heard, listened to, that ability has diminished a little bit. But for me to be able to transmit something, first I need to have received it, and then he who transmitted it to me needs to have received it as well, all the way to Buddha Shakyamuni. And we have this great fortune to have this uninterrupted lineage. So I'll give you the transmission in Tibetan as I received it, and you can imagine above me there's my root guru, Lama Michel Rinpoche, and above him his root guru, Kyabche Chijan Dorje Chang, and then Pabonka Rinpoche, all the way up to Buddha Shakyamuni. And from Buddha comes like a flow of light that goes from one master to another, like bringing the meaning and the essence. So all the words that bring this light that is really of the essence, the meaning of the sutra, and then to my heart, and then to you.
Gyagaragedu Bhagavati Prajnaparamita Hridaya Pyogedu Chumnende Mashirage Barodu Chimbenyimbo Chumnende Mashirage Barodu Jimbala Chatselo Dige Adake Teba Tujina Chumnende Gabo Kaba Chago Pomborela Gelongi Gendun Chimbodan Janjo Zembe Gendun Chimbodan Taba Chikdu Shote Teze Chumnende Samunawa She Jawe Chuki Namrangi Tinge Zinla Nyumbar Shos Yan Teze Janjo Zemba Zemba Jembo Baba Jereze Wanjokam Shiragi Barodu Jimba Samocheba Nila Nambrata Shimpumongabo Dedakyan Dedalaya Ranshingi Tomba Nambratawo Tenesangi Tu Tenandemba Sharipu Janjo Semba Semba Jembo Baba Jereze Wanjola Dike Cheme So Rigi Pua Rigi Pomokanala Shiragi Barodu Jimba Samocheba Cheba Debate Jidarla Barcha Teke Che Mebadan Janjo Semba Semba Jembo Baba Jereze Wanjo Gia Sedandemba Sharatati Pula Dike Cheme So Sharipu Rigipu Rigipu Mokanala Shiragi Barodu Jimba Samo Cheba Chebar Debate Jidar number Tawra Chate Pumbo Angapo Dedakan Ran Shingi Tomba number Yandabra Jesu Tau So Tombao Tomba Ni So Sole Kyan Tomba Ni Shemain Tomba Ni Lekan So Shemaino Te Shin Tu Tsurwadan Duchedan number Shebanan Tombao Sharipu Tedawena Cheba Che tamche tomba ni de tseni meba ma keba ma gaba tima meba tima dan trawa tiwa meba kanwa meba o sharipu tedawena tomba ni la some tsoro me dushe me duche na me namra sheba me ming me nawa me na me cheme lume ime sume drame trime rome rekcha me cho me to mige kame ba ne yige kame yige namra shebe kamge pardo yame to marikba me marikba seba meba ne gashi me gashi sebe pardo yame to teshin to dunge wadan kunjo wada goba dan lame yeshe me to ba me matoba yame Sharipu Tedawena Janjo Zembana Toba Mebe Chir Shiragi Barodo Jimbalati Jimba Samo Dila Tenjine de Semla Triba Mejin Traba Mede Chinchi Lole Shindo Dene Nyangele de Petar Chindo Tusundo Ngombra Shube Sange Damjenga Shiragi Barodo Jimbala Tene Lana Meba Yandabar Sobe Janju Ngombra Soba Sange So Tedawena Shiragi Barodo Jimbenga Rikba Chimbenga Lana Mebenga Minyambada Nyambra Chebenga, Dunga Tamja Rabdu Shivar Chebenga, Mizumbena, Demra Shebar Chade Sheragi Barodu Jimbenga, Mepa tayata gate gate parasam gate bodhi swaha sharipu janjo semba semba chambo Chembo namge o chembo namge tetra shiragi parotu chimba samula labra chavo tene chumdende tinge zinde lechende janjo semba semba chembo baba chereze wanjula lexo she jawa chingne lexo rigi pu tetishino tetishinte chitar kyogi temba tishintu shiragi parotu chimba samula chebra chate deshin sheba namge jesu irango chumne dige cheka tsene tsedan demba sharata di buddha janjo semba semba chembo baba chereze wanjula Tam chedan dembe kor teda dal hadamida lamaida chisar chebe chikten irante chumdende gi sumbala ngombara to chumdende mashera gi barato jimbe nimbo zokso.
First of all, there's a difference between the sutra of the essence, the sutra of the essence of perfection and the actual essence of perfection. The sutra is like a bridge that brings us to try to understand this essence of the perfection of wisdom, which we'll try in these few hours together, we'll try to do. So let's start with the mantra. Repeat after me.
Paragate, parasamgate, bodhi, swaha.
So we start from the beginning. Tayata. Tayata in Tibetan is diktate. We could translate it as it is like this. It is like this. Gate means to go. Gate, go. Paragate, go beyond. Parasamgate, go far beyond. Bodhi, the state of perfection, of enlightenment. Soha, let it be so. So to go, first of all, we need to understand what's going and where are we going. So that's the first part of Tayata. So most of us, we find ourselves at Tayata, or we're not even in Tayata, we're in front of Tayata. Let's try to understand, like, it's like this. Reality, how is it? So first of all, how do we see things? We see each other. You see me, right? Do I appear to you? Or better, what appears to you, to your eyes? Lama or your version of Lama, without philosophizing. If you ask the person next to you, you say, do you see Lama? What would the answer be? Would you say, which Lama? The one I see? No, we would say yes. But if you just think about it a little bit more, we see that, what I see is not necessarily what you see. Or if we're even more precise, it is not what you see, and in no way, because our eyes are different, our eyesight is different. We're actually even physically in a different position. We attribute different meaning. Also, like the sound of a singing bell. If I play the singing bell and I say, what are you listening to? Are you listening to the bell that I've just played? It's not like I played more. So without analyzing, the answer would be, yes, I hear the singing bell. But if you ask the person next to you, did you hear this sound? Actually, what we're asking is, did you hear the sound that I heard? Or are you listening? Are you hearing the sound that I'm hearing? Because in our perception, the sound that I hear it's not the sound that I hear. It's the sound that is. So when we hear a sound or we see someone, how does this reality appear to us, as being subjective or objective? In your opinion? Objective. It appears to us as something that is, and I see it. It's there, right? When we go to analyze a little bit, there are many levels, but let's try in a simple way. First of all, anything that we perceive through our senses comes come through a combination of parts. It's not just one thing. So first of all, when we see something, there's light that touches my body. From my body, it reflects and it goes towards your eyes. And depending on the material, the material or my skin, that absorbs and reflects the light differently, going to your eyes with different frequencies. And what happens with this? Colors come. And then also the different forms. And these waves of light, of frequency that come to our eyes, what do? We perceive through our sense of vision, and if I take off my glasses, I can assure you that what I see changes. And then we have a part that's called this in this the consciousness of the sense. So in this case, the visual consciousness that is telling us, okay, I'm seeing this, what is it? And then based on all of our experience and knowledge from the past, we say, okay, I'm seeing this person, I'm seeing this, that, or the other, and we attribute a meaning. So what we see in this moment, and now you're looking at me, or those of you at home, you're looking through the camera. I mean, what we all see is different. You're in a different position. The light that reflects is different. That sense power of your eye is different. I mean, it could be very similar, but remember that what is similar by definition is different. And this sensory consciousness, or that part of the information that comes to our eyes, to which we give importance, because there's something very interesting with this is a side note, a quick side note. When we see things, I mean, there are things that we see, but we don't actually see them, or rather, the information comes, but that information is not treated as important, and so it's skipped. When we start to know something and we give importance to that, we start to see it more. When we don't know something, we don't give importance to it, and often we're not able to see it. The story that I've the example that I've given many times is these transformations, the electrical transformation booths, that for me, they just didn't exist. As soon as I started to know them, I see them everywhere. So this visual consciousness takes all of this information that comes, and somehow it actually is able to pick out what we know, what is important information, and give a meaning to it. We're all human beings here, but our sense power is different. The meaning we give is different. The position is different. So Now, if you ask, do you see Lama? Yes. But the question, are you seeing the Lama that I am seeing? The answer is no. When we listen to the singing bowl, do we hear the singing bowl? Yes. Do you hear what I hear? Without philosophizing, yes. But if we analyze just a bit, no. So even if we live in a reality that appears to us as being objective, actually this reality is subjective. Another aspect. When we see everything, we have this tendency to see that thing as if it existed autonomously, just detached from everything else. Even sound. As we perceive the sound, we imagine the sound, but that sound doesn't exist independently from this movement of the metal of the singing bowl, or the atmosphere that we have that allows for this transmission of these waves, or our own hearing, etc., etc., etc. So if we were to look for that sound, where can we find it? Is the sound in the singing bowl? Is it in the wave in the air? Is it in our hearing? Is it in our perception? Is it in the value that we attribute to it? Because if we take away any one of those things, there's no more sound. We live in a reality where everything that exists in a relational way. And a relational way means that thing exclusively within this network of relationships. If you take away just one aspect, it's not that thing anymore. Like when we think about a complex equation, any number in the equation that changes the result. So we live in a reality that is relational, and this goes from the macro, like on the universal level, to the actual micro quantistic level. Nothing exists independently from other things. For example, they've done very valid scientific research where they would throw, I don't know if I'm able to explain it very well, they would throw these like light particles in the same position, and they could see that the trajectory and what it did and where it would get to. And they saw that even if they threw from the same point, they would be influenced by the ones that were thrown before, and it would throw off the trajectory. So what happens is, once there's something that interacts with something else, the result changes. There's no interaction without bringing a transformation, but we have this tendency to want to see things as if they existed independently of the relationships, giving a very gross idea. Sometimes I hear people complaining, that person's not sincere, because when he's with other people is different, and when we're alone, that person's different. So when is that person fake, with me or with the other? I imagine that it's never fake, in the sense that it's absolutely normal. It's actually inevitable that when you change the parts of the equation, the result changes. And if the more people are part of that interaction, the greater that result will change. So it's absolutely normal that if I'm with you, there's the one kind of interaction and I'm in this way, and if there's another person present, there's another aspect of the equation, and so that changes, but we don't see that. We have this perception of wanting to see the situation, a person, as if it existed autonomously, independently. It's the person's there, and it's not only objective, but it's also independent. So actually detached from other relations, other aspects. But no, it's really important for us to see how we relate to things. So reality arises to us in this objective way. We're not even aware of our part in that. Is that clear? When we see something, what appears to us is a collection of parts to which we attribute a meaning. For example, if you look at these images to my left, your right, who is that? It's Buddha Shakyamuni. Once about a 6-year-old girl. A 6-year-old girl from one of the schools that came for teaching. She said, "Who is that girl with the blue helmet?" So, I mean, in our culture, someone in a skirt and a dress in our culture would be more of a woman than a man. And what about the hair? I mean, it can look like a helmet, can't it? So that child's question, was it wrong? Or the impression she had, was it wrong? Let me just tell you a quick story to help you answer that question. I read it when I was studying Portuguese at school. There's a story that talked about a missionary who went into the Amazon in Brazil and was there for a few years. And he became very good friends with a indigenous boy there. And when he was about to leave, the boy went to him and said, "Can you leave me something to memory you?" And he pointed to his watch. He said, "Can you give it to me?" And the missionary said, "Oh, this watch, I really like it. It has so many functions, not just the time, but it shows you the whole calendar and the lunar phases. Okay, you helped me so much. I have so much gratitude. I'll leave this with you, but use it well." Yes, yes, yes. He was very happy to receive this watch. And before he actually left, he calls him again, the boy, and he shows him that he had hung the watch up in the tree, a tree full of colors. He says, no, it's a watch. It's to show you the time. You have to wear it on your wrist. It's not something to embellish the forest. And this boy didn't understand so much. And so the boy so the missionary's back in his office in the city, and he was telling this story. So it's like how stupid this boy was. He took that watch that had all those functions to show you the time and the lunar phase. I mean, it was just like with Swiss precision, and he hung it up on the tree to beautify the forest. He didn't understand anything. And as he was telling the story, behind him on the wall, there were the bows and arrows of the indigenous people hanging, and there the actual tip of the arrow is made from very specific a specific stone. Also the wood, was very specific, and the feathers of specific birds. I mean, there's all things that were very specific for hunting, right? And so following that same logic of that missionary, the indigenous boy could go to him and say, "This, you're absolutely ridiculous to hang this on the wall. It's not to embellish your office. It's for hunting." So who was right? So they were both right and they were both wrong. Just to understand this even better, let's take this object here. This, what is this? And this is not a trick question, really. What is this? What is this? It's a singing bowl. Why is it a singing bowl? Because it makes noise. Let me see. What about this? Is that a singing bowl? It makes noise. No, it's not that it makes noise. Also, a tambourine makes noise, but it's not a singing bowl. My hands also make noise. So making noise is not enough. So we have a concept. We have an image of a singing bowl, that can be in metal or even in glass, and it makes a certain type of sound when it vibrates. So we can talk about the definition of what we want to give to a singing bowl, but what happens is we attribute this concept with these functions to this object. Does the object have the ability to sustain these functions? So I can say, yes, this is a singing bowl. What other functions can this object uphold? Can it be a big bowl? Can it be an actual pot? Can it be something that you sit on? Can it be something to protect you? Can it also be a weapon? How many different things can this be? So many different things. So we attribute a meaning, and then the collection of parts can uphold that function. So any name that we give it that is coherent with the parts and the function, that's correct. If I go into a store and I buy a beautiful Tibetan singing bowl, and then at a certain point I don't see it, and I look in the garden and someone's used it as a dog bowl, or maybe in one's bedroom to use it during the night to not have to go to the bathroom. Maybe I go to that person and say, no, that's my sacred Tibetan singing bowl that I use for meditation. It's not something that we use to feed the dog, even though we love the dog. And I understand you don't want to go down to the bathroom at night, but let's do something else. The person who's using it as a dog bowl, is that person wrong? Yes and no. In the sense that to say that it's a dog bowl, I mean, it is a bowl. It's wrong because I bought it and I gave it the name Tibetan singing bowl. But it's not just a Tibetan singing bowl. It becomes a Tibetan singing bowl once I give it that name, because otherwise it can be dedicated to many different other things. Sometimes friends went to an indigenous tribe and said, "Oh yeah, we have something of yours, something from your culture," but when it arrived, it didn't work very well. But now it works perfectly. "Well, show me," he says, and there was. Remember that indigenous people don't use chairs, and there was a chair they crouch down to sit. Or they sit down on the ground. So there was a chair, and they have a lot fewer digestive problems, by the way. So they had an iron chair. They said first there was something that would that covered here, but we took it off. But now it's perfect for cooking. And so it was like a metallic structure. And then so they had put the fire underneath, and they made a kind of grill instead, where there used to be the seat of the chair. I mean, that's a correct perception, isn't it? Because the collection of parts were able to uphold the functions that they gave that object. Our difficulty is that no matter how much I ask you about this object, which is a bell, it's a ritual bell, etc., if I said to you, okay, from today on, this is no longer a bell, but it's a cup. Can it work as a cup? Once someone said no, and then I showed them. I mean, better to wash it first, but but it does hold water. Better for cold things and more than hot things. Well, someone could say, oh, but you can't put it on the ground. But I've seen also in the airport, I've seen like little cups made in a cone shape so that people don't leave them on the ground. Okay, so it's a tantric cup, let's say. So imagine that I said, from now on, this is a cup. And so then you come and you see me drinking water from this. How does it appear to you? As being a cup, a glass, or as being a bell that's being used as a cup? But why isn't it a cup being used as a bell? Yes, you might say, well, Lama, stop playing around. It's a bell because it's a bell. It's a bell because the collection of parts are able to uphold the characteristics and functions and the name of bell, because we have given it the name bell. It's simple as that. But conceptually, we can understand that. But saying that it's a cup and really seeing it as a cup is difficult for us, because it's as if it appeared independently, objectively, as a bell. This appearance as being something that exists as such, like this bell as an autonomous, independent, objective way. This is what we would call intrinsic appearance. And this object is a bell because it's a bell, or because we've just given the name bell. No, it appears to us as being a bell because it's objectively in our mind a bell. So does it exist independent from interactions? Or, I mean, we don't even take into consideration that there are other interactions. I mean, it's just a bell, objective, independent. So this object of bell exists as if it were objective and autonomous, independent. And if we want to add one more, do you see this bell? Can you remember the bell? And do you see it again? We can spend all day long. Is the bell? Is it the same bell as the same bell as before? And now let's do a magic. Is it the same bell as before? Yes or no? When does the bell change? Like, let me give you an example that is easier to understand. This, for example. Okay, we can do the same game. It's the same one, but paper over time becomes yellow. I mean, just from one instant to the next, paper becomes yellow. Let's give you even another example. You see my beard, for example. Now close your eyes. Open. Is it the same beard as before? Has it grown? When does it grow? Once I heard that a beard grows 5 nanomillimeters a second. A millimeter is like a millimeter divided by a billion or something. So 5 of those is how much it grows in a second. So my beard is growing. The paper is transforming. Even this cup, the glass, is transforming. But how does it all appear to us as being permanent or impermanent? We see it, and when we see it again, we think it's the same. So reality, that it's subjective, impermanent, and relational, exists instead as being objective, autonomous, and permanent. Are you following? Someone might say, okay, but what does this have to do with me? I'm not here to study physics and philosophy. Oh, it is important on so many levels. Think about an object of desire or an object of anger. How does it appear to us? As being an object of anger? As being subjective, relational, and impermanent? Or it's an object of anger objectively, autonomously, and it exists in a permanent way? An object of desire. It's an object of desire because I attributed that meaning, etc. Or it is because it is. I mean, how do we live the experience? We live our objects of anger and desire and fear, whatever it is, as being objective and permanent. What's interesting is that at the basis of our emotions, like anger and resentment, fear, envy, jealousy, attachment, etc., at the basis of all of that, there are prerequisites for these emotions to uphold. So those objects need to appear as being objective, independent, and permanent. When you take when you take those away, that emotion just falls apart because it doesn't have legs to stand on. Another consequence, if I asked you, do you have a body? Yes or no? Do you have a hand? Do you have a head? Nose, ears? Do you have it or not? Me too. Do you have a mind? Do you have sensations, feelings? Do you have your ideas? Do you have a personality? Do you have sensory perceptions, memories? Yes or no? So you have a body and a mind. Who is this that possesses this body and mind? Where is this self that possesses body and mind? Before that, there's a very simple concept. This relationship between possessing requires that the one who possesses needs to exist independently of what is possessed. I can say I have a house. I mean, if I don't have a house anymore, I continue to exist. But if it would be more correct to not say I have a body and a mind, but I'm made up of of body, mind, discernment, sensations, etc. It's like we imagine a car, and we say, and the car has wheels and has the body, it has seats, has the wheel. And where's the car that possesses all of these elements? Does it exist? No. The car is an entity that's relational. What exists is this relationship among these parts, and all these parts put together. A meaning is attributed. The name attributed car. The same thing about ourselves. We have body and mind. They're the basis on which we attribute the name I. But even I, our own identity, appears as if it were objective, independent, autonomous, and permanent. And we relate ourselves, and then as a consequence, we relate to the world as if we exist in an autonomous, independent, and actually even permanent way. Objective way. If we didn't see ourselves as permanent, then we wouldn't suffer. Then we wouldn't suffer when we see the signs of aging. So this brings us to feel distanced and detached from things, because I have nothing to do with you and with everything else, and we live as if everything lived detached. We're separate beings, we're individuals. And one of the results of this is this inner attitude of having this, of being self-centered, this obsession with self-gratification. I am the center of the universe. And some people say, oh, I'm not selfish. My children are more important to me than myself. Yeah, they're your children or your grandchildren, your dog. They're always an extension of the self. So what happens is this obsession with self-gratification, which is a result of this, of seeing everything as being detached and separate, generates anger, hatred, resentment. In other words, a way we relate to everything has sense, but in relation to me. And so I relate to everything from the basis of 3 factors. It's good for me, it's bad for me, or I'm indifferent to it. To what I attribute that which generates pleasure for me, I have attraction to that. That which I see as being something that makes me suffer, I generate suffering. And if I don't, if I see it as something that doesn't generate, is neither good or bad for me, I'm indifferent to it. If something is, if I see something as being bad for me and I generate aversion to it, I try to get away from it. So their aggression comes out, or aversion comes out. Instead, if I'm in front of an object that generates attraction because I think that is good for me, I generate attachment, desire, and that brings dissatisfaction, and it also brings aggression and resentment on the other side. So when we talk about the correct view of reality, tayata, the way it's like this, it's the reality. How is reality? How do we see it? It's not just a philosophical game. It's about going to the essence, the heart of why we suffer, and going to the heart of how to eliminate the suffering. At the beginning, it seems very conceptual, but little by little, you start to see that it has to do with every aspect of our lives. But let's philosophize a little bit more. This object here that we call singing bowl. Is it solid? Yes, it is. Huh? Is it solid in an objective way or subjective way? Objective. Why? Why is it solid? It's solid in relation to something else. So let's say let's say that let's say I put it now. I'm something made of steel that is very, very strong, that can actually perforate this, is no longer solid. I mean, it's solid in relation to my hand. So it's not objectively solid. It's solid in relation to something else, and in this case, to my hand. There are things that, even a piece of paper, and we just go, with a sharp piece of wood or something. Is that solid? No. Even if but a little ant, that piece of paper is an enormous barrier. So there are aspects like the solidity of something, that if something is heavy, if something is rigid, it all depends on something else. It's not something that exists objectively, autonomously, definitively. But here there's something very important. What happens if I'm absolutely convinced? I'm in front of a store, and I'm sure that there's someone in the store, when there's actually a mannequin that just looks like a person. There was a time in Milan, before the center of Albagnano existed, we had a little shop in our center in Milan, and it was had a window right onto the store, and we had a mannequin. And then there was someone who didn't come in, went by and didn't come in. And we said, "Why didn't you come in that day?" "Oh, because there was that person. I didn't want to talk to that person." But it was actually just the mannequin. I mean, so no matter how much I'm convinced that the mannequin is a person, is it a person? No. Because if it were a person, he would be able to speak and do things that a person does. It's like if I say, let's say that I'm convinced that this is a chocolate cake. No matter how much I believe it, can it be a chocolate cake? No. Why? Because it doesn't have the ability to uphold the characteristics and the function of a chocolate cake. So reality is not just in our head. Like an example, a very clear example of this is Geshe Lotsan Tempa, who was a geshe who went to live in Brazil for a while. It's a long story. Anyway, he ended up at my mom's house for 6 months. And one day, he went to the Dharma Center at the very, very, very beginning, actually. This is maybe 1991, 92. And he wanted to do a blessing ceremony. And there's also this inner offering and usually you put in some black tea or alcohol, and you just touch it with your ring finger like this. And so we asked, can you bring a little bit of alcohol and also a glass of water? So they bring her 2 glasses, one very beautiful and one a little bit just normal. So he took, it was very hot, and he took one, and when he went to drink it, he actually do the way they do in India. So first we put in the mouth and then we swallow. I've never, have you ever, I don't know if you've ever seen anyone open the throat directly while they're drinking. So I mean, he was used to drinking like this, and so he took the glass of pinga, which is like grappa, and he throws it back, opening up his throat. It was like a glass bigger than that. He was absolutely desperate. I had never drunk alcohol in his entire life. He had to drink so much water, and he did the ceremony a little bit like this. Then he had to go home and sleep. So no matter how much we believe that it's water, if it's not, it's not. To say that reality is not just in our head. It's not what you believe. It's relational. So I attribute to a meaning, and that corresponds or not to the value that I've given. So there are erroneous perceptions. Here, for example, there's something very practical. Has it ever happened that you've argued with someone because you have different points of view? I mean, it can happen, right? So let's say someone comes, oh, is this a cup or is this a bell? And we can spend hours talking about it. But the starting point should be asking, okay, let's see the value that you attribute, the characteristics and the functions that you attribute to the object. Can they uphold all that object, that situation, that person? Yes. Okay, then you have a correct perception. The value, the characteristics, the functions that you attribute, can they be upheld? Yes. Okay, so then the starting point is that we are both right. We both have correct perception. So which one is more beneficial? So instead, if we see that I have an erroneous perception that the value that I give cannot be upheld by the characteristics and the functions of that object, then that's erroneous. But we live in an interdependent reality, so that actually more correct than interdependent would be a reality that is actually mutually dependent, because interdependent gives this idea almost of like you and I, we're interdependent. I exist on my side, you exist on your side, but then we connect somehow. We relate, so we're interdependent. Instead, no, I don't exist without you and you don't exist without me. We are mutually dependent. One example that Nagarjuna gave is let's imagine that there's a race, and we want to invite the people who run to run this race, and the runners are ready to run, and then they start running. But what makes a runner a runner? What determines a person to be a runner or not a runner? A runner is someone who runs. But one who is not running, is he a runner? Actually, he's a potential runner, But in that moment, he's not actually a runner. So the act of running, can that exist without the person who's run or someone who is running? I mean, so running exists independence on the runner, and the runner exists independent on the running, and they exist at the same time. If there's not one, then there's not the other. But we have this tendency of saying the runner is running. No. If we analyze well, where is the running? Where is the runner? If he's not running, we're not going to find him. So where is the one who runs and the act of running? But one doesn't exist without the other. Is this clear? More or less. So they're mutually dependent. A little bit like the here and there. The ancient example would be this mountain and that mountain. But let's use a chair. I'm seated in this chair. You're seated in that chair. I get up from this chair and I go towards that chair and I sit in that chair. And so that chair becomes this chair. So this and that exists exclusively independent in a reciprocal dependency. And just like big and small, like everything, nothing exists in an autonomous way. Everything exists in a relational way. And with every part that interacts, there's a dependency. So, and everything that exists is also independent, has independence with me. So like this, we really see how reality changes, this reality that is subjective and independent and impermanent. So the first thing is to define something. So what is the definition of master? Or the master is someone who is someone who is based on it teaches or someone that you rely on spiritually. Maybe doesn't actually teach, but you still rely on spiritually. But the actual answer is even the runner, while he's not running, we call him runner. Think about a famous runner. So is he a runner when he's not running? Without philosophizing, yes. Without analyzing, yes. But if we analyze, no. There is no agent, the one who does an action that's independently from the action, and the action depends on the agent, cause and result. The fire is the cause of the smoke, but so the smoke exists as a result of the cause of the fire. There is no autonomous result or cause. They're mutually dependent. And this brings us to the fact that every interaction changes our existence. Every object, every thought, and this is difficult for us to understand, to accept, to take it to a deeper, more practical level, because reality appears to us as if it existed autonomous and independently, and that works quite well, except for the fact that it generates selfishness, anger, hatred, resentment, this sense of detachment we suffer when things change. Because, for example, when we see someone, for example, we see someone and at a certain point we say goodbye, and then we're going to see each other maybe the next day, an hour later, the next week. When we see that person again, who do we think we're going to see? That same person or someone who has changed? Without analyzing or philosophizing, we're going to go see that same person. But when we see a film a year later, is it the same movie? Has it ever happened that you really enjoyed a movie and then you call someone to see that movie again and you just didn't find anything there? It's happened to me a couple times. What happens is a year later when I see that movie, it's not that the director went there and changed something, but the context is different. I'm in a different context, and inevitably then the result is going to be different. So when we talk about someone, I mean, I've also changed over time, and that person has changed over time, but we relate with every person, every situation through this mental image that are a little bit like photographs. So when I see you, I go to you, when I see you, it's like taking a photograph of you. I take that picture, and then I go to see you again. I want to find that photograph. That's what I expect to find. But let's remember that when we see a photo, here, this photo, for example, let's take this photo that represents Lama Caroline here to my left. What do you see in that photograph? What does it show us? The person, Lama Caroline, and the place where she is. But actually, we're not seeing just that. We're seeing the position of the photographer, the perspective of the photographer, the choices of the light, etc. Because that same moment photographed by someone else with different filters from a different position, that photograph would be different. And when we see that person a week later, but not will be different. The context will be different. I will be using different filters. Of course, that person was different. But our tendency is to take a photograph and expect to find that. I take that photograph. I put that photo up to that person. It corresponds well enough, okay, but when it doesn't correspond anymore, something's changed. But even photographs over time change. Una part vanishes, a little bit of Photoshop, we change something here and there because the memories that we have, the memories that we have, are they exactly as they were just after the fact? No, but we're not aware that is my memory that has changed over time. So, and one of these points of this ignorance is that we see the situation, objects, or others. Let's take a person as an example. We see the person, we relate to that person through this mental image that we have of this person, and we have this confusion where we believe that that mental image is that person. So after a while, I see you again. I say, okay, well, you're not the same. This is not you. To me, it feels like this. Oh, but you weren't like this before. I don't know. I remember being like this. So we relate through these mental images. Mental images are mostly permanent, actually. until they have a particular interaction, they stay stable. And over time, we think that that person, that situation, that object is that mental image. And then at a certain point, we realize that the situation, that person, the object doesn't correspond to that mental image. We see, okay, there's been a change. When I talked about my beard earlier, is actually our vision doesn't have the ability, our senses don't have, our brain doesn't have this ability to perceive changes on such a small on such a small level. So I I keep projecting this mental image, saying it's the same, it's the same, it's the same. When that change is so much that the mental image is no longer able to sustain that, then we say, okay, there's been a change. So one key here is to understand that we relate to reality through mental images. That's one point. So actually, in reality, more than relating to you, I relate to the mental image I have of you. And it's a little bit more complex because not only do I have the mental image of this person, I also have an idealized image that's idealized with one of these categories, a category of father, or mother, or son, or boyfriend. So I put you in this category, and then I add things. Okay, you're not a mother the way you should be. You're not a friend the way you should be because you don't correspond to this idealized image that I have. That I have attached to you, the fruit of social, cultural aspects, experience, etc. I mean, how often does one suffer, because one feels disappointed from a friend because maybe it doesn't correspond to this idealized image of what a friend should be. Also, there's another important point. We are impermanent. Once in a while, people say, "Oh, are you happy or sad?" Try to, if I asked you, "Are you a happy or sad person?" Do you try to answer that question or not? Do you look for an answer? It it would be more correct to say, "I'm not going to answer you because the question is wrong." In this moment, do you feel joy or sadness or neither? This is a question that is much more correct because we're made of moments. There are moments where we're happy, moments when we're sad, moments when we feel what we feel. I mean, there's the continuous flow of emotions and feelings and experiences. We're not one thing. But we also have this error of this tendency to generalize. I'm happy, I'm sad. That person is bad. That person is good. That depends on the moment, the context, and there's moments of kindness, moments of 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 bitterness, or so we have one aspect and we tend to generalize. This, in the end, it makes it so that we relate to reality in an incoherent way, or in a way it doesn't correspond. We could say at the basis we have cognitive errors. We live in a reality that is interdependent, but appears to us as if it were objective, autonomous, independent, permanent, when instead it's subjective, relational, impermanent. Are you following? So this is Tayata. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. That's how I am. Is everything that I see. How am I? I'm a being. I'm an entity. I exist as an subjective, interdependent, relational, and impermanent being, entity. I'm constantly transforming. I don't exist independently from all the parts that compose me. Every interaction that I have defines who I am. And I don't exist independently from every interaction that I have. This is important to understand because in this moment, I don't exist independently from every one of you. In this moment, I don't exist independently from and how you behave, how you think, because each one of you interact through that, and I transform through everything that I interact with. But how often do we see someone and we want to see the person? Like someone says, "Oh, Lama, and in front of you, everybody's all is good." I say, well, at least normally it's normal to adapt. It's not that everyone is always the same and that's who he is. No. We are relational beings. It doesn't mean I exist and then I relate. It means I don't exist independently from the relations that I have. The relations. I don't know if that difference is clear. So if you take that same being and you change the context of that being, that entity, that being changes. When there's an interaction, there's a transformation. Just change one part of the equation and the result is different. And we're very, very complex equations. So that's the way it is. What's the difficulty? That no matter how much we can understand that everything exists in a subjective, relational way, that all composed phenomena are impermanent, in constant transformation. Nothing exists independently from its own parts. That outside reality exists, but it doesn't exist independently of our inner reality, and the inner reality doesn't exist outside of the outside reality. So they're of the same nature. They have two different appearances, but the same nature. So two distinct appearances, but two. Let's reflect a little bit just to make sure that what I'm saying is correct. So the running and the runner it's the same nature, but of two different appearances, because one doesn't exist without the other, but they're two different things. So when in the monastery we use these terms like two people who are always the same, we use that expression, oh, those two people, they're the same nature, but a different appearance. There's not one without the other. It's a Tibetan term. So reality is like this, but even if it's like this, once that we've understood, is that enough just to change our perception? No, because the point here is not understanding. Understanding is nice, but it's very far, 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 far from being enough. It's like saying, oh, okay, you shouldn't get angry. I've understood. Thank you. One thing is understanding, another thing is being that. So, and our objective here is to change the paradigm where one, it's not just, not about comprehending that reality is interdependent, but just, it's about not seeing anything as being not interdependent. So between, and that's Bodhi, and between Tayata and Bodhi, there are 4 passages. There's the Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi, Soha. How many parts are there? We have Tayata, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi, and Soha is let it be so. So in these 6 parts, we can actually, we take Tayata as a preparation. So if you take away the Tayata, then we have 5 parts. That first part is that's how it is. That's when we've understood something, and you can apply it to other aspects, even to a diet. I shouldn't eat gluten. I shouldn't eat lactose. This is what we see today. Oh, sugar's not good for me. Has it ever? If you've gone to a doctor and a doctor's giving you a diet, and when you receive the diet and you've understood it, that's the Tayata. From Tayata to having realized the diet, where you follow the diet spontaneously without even thinking about it, then you have the Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Parasamgate. So gone beyond, gone far beyond to realize the diet. So go, those first 2 goes make reference to a conceptual process. I mean, still a conceptual level. Even if to get from Tayata to Gate, I need to take 2, actually 3 steps. First, I need to have a theoretical comprehension where I'm actually convinced. I haven't understand fully the why. I don't have any clear logical reasoning, and I don't have a direct experience, but I trust. I mean, the doctor told me I shouldn't eat this and I should eat that. I've understood, and that's the wisdom of listening. In technical terms, it's when one has a correct assumption. What's the definition in Tibetan? Is the certainty of something, that it's a certainty that is not based on any logical reasoning or on direct reasoning. Someone told me, and I trust that. That's that first part when we've concluded the listening, and we're still the second point where we're still at Tayata. I need to go to a logical reasoning. So not only have I received that information, I reflect upon it, I study it until I really understood why this is good for me and eating that is bad for me. And so that certainty of the diet is not just something someone told me, but it's my own certainty. I've understood it, and from understanding, I've passed to comprehending. To if someone, because that first phase, if someone else comes with a fancy logic, I can change my idea very easily. But instead, when I have really understood something, then it's mine. And so once I've understood, going from Tayata to Gate, that's when I start familiarizing myself with that concept. So if it's the diet, when do I pass from something conceptual to something experiential? When I stop eating that thing and start eating something that other thing. At the beginning, it's conceptual because I need to think about it, and I need to remember it, and I need to do this and not do that. And those first two gates is still conceptual. Paragate. So when I go beyond, is when someone has an experience regarding that's non-conceptual. I've had a direct experience. I feel, oh wow, I feel good when I eat like this. Time has gone by. Oh look, I don't have any more belly swelling. I have more energy. I feel good. It's no longer understanding, why that's good for me. It's a direct experience, which is much deeper. So now we've gone beyond. We've gone beyond the concept. But before realizing it, we need to go far beyond, because no matter how, regardless of this, the experience of sugar being bad to me, I have this deep habit, this conditioning to eat sugar, and I still have this grasping of this idea that it's good for me. So I need to repeat this experience of living without sugar again and again and again, until that conviction of being being so much better off without sugar. So that mind of desire for sugar that believes that sugar is good just actually vanishes, and not eating sugar just becomes part of my being, and that's the body, and that is when I've realized it. So it's tayata. I understand. I comprehend. I understand. Then gate, I put it into practice. I go from paragate. I go from that non-conceptual. I go from conceptual to experiential, and then parasamgate, even more and more experience until I realize it. So it's like this: tayata, gate, go on a conceptual well, but I'm familiarizing myself more and more. Paragate, I generate that on a non-conceptual level, on an experiential way. And parasamgate, I familiarize myself even more and more to get to bodhi. Let's give you one more example. When I find myself in front of a situation, when am faced with a situation in front of somebody, whatever it is, as we said before, we live reality. We live that situation in a interdependent and subjective way, and inevitably I live that through the filter of myself. And one of the aspects of this is that we're not able to perceive the present independently from our past. So if I have wounds, I live that through those wounds. Tayata, I've understood. I need to understand it. I need to repeat that concept again and again and again. And so that until I'm in front of the situation and it's absolutely clear that I'm living this reality through the experience of myself, but I still victimize myself. Now I need to go from tayata to gate. I need to meditate. I need to familiarize myself with that. Bring my mind to single pointedly, so that that shows me that I live this experience through my own filters, and to a point that it is so is so clear that it's no longer a concept. I repeat it again and again until it becomes completely spontaneous. And what this process is showing us is that our process of transformation it is gradual. And gate, parasamgate, bodhi, these five, they're called the five paths. In other words, they're not five parallel paths, but they're like five points of the same path, like steps. You go one step and then to another. The starting point is Tayata, and the final the finish line is the Bodhi. And to start, I need to have understood. I need to start from Tayata. These five paths, this path towards illumination, the enlightenment, they're called the path of accumulation, Tsoklam, the path of preparation, Jorlam in Tibetan, the path of seeing, Tonlam, and the path of familiarization or meditation, Gomlam, and the path of no more learning, Mi Loblam. So Gate, preparation, accumulation, Gate, accumulation, Gate, preparation, Paragate, seeing, Parasamgate, familiarization, meditation, and Bodhi, no more learning. These are, just in a few words, these are the steps, the necessary steps on the path to enlightenment. Tayata requires two aspects: love, compassion, and the correct view of reality. The path towards enlightenment is based on this sense of love and compassion. One develops a correct view of reality, and we start from Tayata. It is like this. And it's like this is made up of two parts. First of all, it's not just about understanding. It requires also what's called nejung. Nejung in Tibetan. There's no translation. We could translate it as the certainty of emerging. If I'm underwater, I'm sure that I'll be able to get out of the water. It's the deep certainty to be able to get out of the cycle of samsara. That certainty that it's really possible to reach a state of peace. And peace like nirvana. It's often translated as renunciation, but I prefer to use to say the certainty, to say definitive emergence. It's emergence. Not like emergency, but emergence like getting out, coming up, getting out. So certainty to be able to get out. So it's the basis for getting into this first gate. So we need a deep understanding of why I suffer. The certainty that it's not enough to stop suffering on a gross level, coarse level, to stop or having pleasurable moments with witnesses. I need to get out of the suffering, the all-permeating suffering. And as long as my body and mind are polluted by my mental defilements and my karma, there will be suffering. So as long as my being is taken by ignorance, selfishness, anger, jealousy, envy, fear, and then all that inertia, all that inertia, that strength of past actions, past karma, there will be suffering. And I need to get out of this. So I need to have this determination that I can get out. With this determination, I recognize that the basis of the suffering, at the at the at the basis of the suffering, I see that reality appears to me as being autonomous, independent, and objective and permanent. And I believe it's like that. It's incoherent. It's not conceptual. I relate to reality as if it were like this. And I recognize that that's the root of my suffering. And I want to get out of this because I live in a reality instead that's interdependent, subjective, relational, and impermanent. This is Tayata. Once I've gotten to Tayata, now I need to start walking. And that's my starting point. And it's already a starting point that's absolutely marvelous. I mean, getting to Tayata is something absolutely wonderful. It's not like we're saying, oh, I'm still at Tayata. No, really, hats off to you if you're at Tayata. Maybe we're still at the T, and we're not at the Ta. We're trying to put the letters together at the beginning. But getting to Tayata is something really, really wonderful. It means developing love towards oneself. Even in the Mahayana Tayata requires love towards others. It's a basis of understanding of the correct reality, which is still conceptual at this point. The first two gates, the first two goals, have to do with the meditation on correct view of reality. That one has not just understood that phenomena are interdependent, but one is able to actually deconstruct this inherent this appearance. Let me explain myself better. Like, what is this? It's a bell. I agree. For me to really see this as a cup, it's not enough to turn it upside down. I need to kill the bell that's here. So what I need to do is the process is this one. First, I do an analytical meditation on the fact that this object actually doesn't exist in an objective way as a bell. It's nothing other than a collection of parts. You can even take this apart. There's the rim. There's the clapper. There's this type of metal that's been composed and to make this type of vibration. So all these parts to which I attribute this name, and I see that the bell exists once there are the parts. It needs the name and the value. If I take away if I take away the name, that object as a bell doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it exists in a relational way. I see that. It's clear to me that the bell is not a bell in an autonomous, independent way. And at this point, I take that logical process and I put it to the side. I observe the bell. I hear it. And I allow that bell to appear to me in a natural, spontaneous way. It appears to me as if it were autonomous and objective and independent. And when I see that appearance, something that it appears as such, I say, no, it's not like that. Like, it's a bell because I'm attributing that meaning to it. Otherwise, it's a collection of parts. Could also be a cup or a glass. And I deconstruct that grasping at bell as a autonomous and objective object. And when I deconstruct it, unfortunately, we're not yet able to see the infinite possibilities of the object of the bell. Because if we ask, how many objects, it could be like it could be like a paper holder. There's an infinite number, but we choose one, and we think that the one that we've chosen is reality. But if I take away the one that we've chosen, we're not able to see the others, because they were just not able to perceive that. Once we take away that it is objectively a bell, when I deconstruct it, I'm not able to see the bell as being anything else. It's simply a negation. It's not as it appears, and there's a kind of shock actually that comes with this negation. And I stay meditating on this shock, on this, it doesn't exist as it appears in objective ways. In other words, it's empty of inherent existence. It's empty doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It means that something's missing. So the bell is empty. Empty of what? Empty of an existence that is autonomous, independent, and objective, because it exists as being interdependent. And when I say that something is empty, it means that, first of all, that thing exists. But it doesn't exist in a certain way. It's empty of something. It's empty of being autonomous and independent, objective. So when I meditate on the emptiness of the bell, I familiarize with myself with the idea that the bell appears as being of intrinsic existence, but it's not. And when I can deconstruct that appearance and I say it's not as it appears, I stay with that negation and I familiarize myself with it. Initially, it's a conceptual process, and these are the first two gates. At a certain point, from a single pointed meditation on that lack of inherent existence, one adds to the meditation, the single pointed meditation, one adds a kind of analysis. So not only is it, not only am I focused on it not being of intrinsic existence, but why is it not of intrinsic existence? And this is the second gata. When we develop vipassana lakton, when that experience goes on and it's no longer conceptual but becomes non-conceptual experience, so a direct experience of that lack of inherent existence, we deconstruct that grasping at intrinsic existence, and so it doesn't exist as such. It's no longer conceptual, but it's a direct experience. That's the paragate. That's the path of seeing. I see it. Metaphorically speaking, I see it. It's not just imagining. It's experiencing it, and I need to experience that experience again and again. Parasamgate, go far beyond, so that little by little I diminish and I take away that habit, that conditioning that the bell exists in an objective, independent way. And if it's like this for the bell, it's like this for everything. And little by little, I can get to Bodhi. When you get to Bodhi, this path of no more learning, anything that I interact with naturally doesn't appear to me as being of inherent existence. It's normal, spontaneous to see everything as subjective, relational, interdependent. And this is one of the aspects that represent an enlightened mind. So every phenomenon exists in an interdependent, subjective, and relational way, and so it doesn't exist in an objective, autonomous way, as it appears to me. And here, there's something very important before we conclude, which is we don't have the ability to think about two opposite things at the same time. I mean, try to think, I like water, I don't like water at the same time. Are you able? One right after the other? I like it, I don't like it. Yeah, that's possible. I like it, I don't like it, I like it. If I want to eliminate a thought, the only real way to do it is to generate the direct opposite of that thought. Because no matter how much I say, I don't like water, it's too hot, it's salty, that's not going to eliminate the thought, I like water, to generate, no matter, if I say I like water, even though it's salty, it's too hot, that's not enough to get to the thought, I don't like water. So for example, let's say here we have bell. So we do the logic in the following way. The bell exists. It is. The bell is as it appears. And how does it appear? It appears in an autonomous, independent, objective way. So the bell is. It exists in an autonomous, objective way as it appears. And on the other side, we say that the bell doesn't exist in an objective way as it appears. In one hand, we have a negation, and then on the other side, we have an affirmation. So we say the bell it appears as being objective, etc. And on the other side, we say the bell lacks this being objective, etc. The first is ignorance that affirms something that's incoherent with reality. I affirm something that doesn't have the basis to sustain it, and the other one, I negate that affirmation, creating kind of coherence, and in that way I'm able to eliminate that ignorance. So the key to eliminate ignorance that grasps at inherent existence starts from interdependence, starts from seeing a reality as being subjective, relational, and seeing it as being interdependent, so that we can deconstruct that grasping at that solid, objective reality. We just do it again and again until it's no longer there, until it doesn't exist anymore. This mind, we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but in essence is the fact that I can, for example, do a lot to diminish anger. It's possible that I see that is it possible that I use an object of anger to practice patience? Have you ever had a difficult experience, for example, this is an object of anger, and then you say to yourself, I can use this to be more compassionate, to be more patient, and it's possible. It's also possible to be in front of an object of anger and and one trains so much, so one is able really to keep the anger at bay. But as long as that object of anger is lived as being an object of anger in an autonomous, objective way, as soon as I stop blocking or counteracting that anger, what's going to happen is just going to come back. The only real way is to make sure that that object of anger is no longer an object of anger. And to do this, the real key, the only possibility is when I deconstruct the object of anger as being something, as being objective and autonomous, etc. And when you can deconstruct it, really, anger doesn't have a solid basis to develop, to legs to stand on. So understanding and then gradually realizing that things, that reality, that things exist in a subjective, interdependent way that takes away that basis. It takes away that basis of reality existing as it appears, and then that allows us to really eliminate these mental defilements that are based on that appearance. Here we're talking about the essence of the Sutra of Essence that Buddha explained, centuries ago. We can complicate it a lot if we want. Today we're trying to simplify as much as possible. But the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom, the part of the sutra that explains how reality is really quite brief. Here is Tayata, but it's not an Tayata is not enough. It's Tayata, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisoha. As Lama Ganchen would joke around sometimes, he would say that the only real miracle is the miracle of hard work. He would say hard work miracle. There's a gradual process to follow. There's steps to take, one step after the other, because every interaction brings a transformation. And if I interact in a certain way, it's going to bring that result. So once we've understood something, sometimes people say, I understand, but it's just not working. I say, it's okay, it's not true. Maybe you already expect to be what you've understood, and that's just not how it works. There's a very long process. Makes me remember a master like Keiko. It's not that those abilities that she had were developed once she understood the technique. How many times did she have to repeat those same exercises to really perfect all those techniques, so she was able to pin a man 3 times her size and weight to the floor. I mean, this is gate paragate. This is something gradually that's done, and we live in a context, our Western reality, where we give most importance to the Tayata. Oh, I've understood. Okay, I've understood. Right? So, but giving an example, it's like this teacher of of Chinese medicine is a Spanish man, and he told this story. He went to his he went to his master of Chinese medicine, who was also very able in calligraphy, and he wanted to learn the calligraphy. And the master said, normally not, but okay, yeah, come tomorrow, and we'll start. So the first day he went and he showed him this ideogram, this and then the next day the same one, so there for an hour doing the same one. The third lesson, this same character. And then he started thinking, oh, maybe he doesn't trust me, he's joking with me, he doesn't want to teach me. Okay, I trust him. I'll just keep going. For about a year, every day he was doing the same Chinese character. And he had lost all hope to learn, really how to, and then one day he went there and he did it without thinking, perfectly, just spontaneously did it. And that master, without saying, oh, good job, he taught him another 30 characters and then another 40. And then he was able to do them so well, just so quickly, because it was given value to the experience more than the understanding. It's like the ancient Japanese carpenters. I was told this. I don't know that those traditional. In Japan, there's still a few, but these traditional carpenters in Japan is very respected position. When they had a student, first having a student, it wasn't obvious. You needed really, it wasn't obvious to be accepted as a student. And then it said that the apprentice needed to be there constantly, no matter how many hours, just always there present. So the apprentice comes, and at the beginning, he's not allowed to ask anything or touch anything, only observe. And it's just go side to side to the carpenter for 8 hours, just watching. At the end, okay, see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, same thing. And this could go on from 1 to 3 years, and then one day, then the master will say, pass me that tool, or you do that piece, and you start everything, and you know how to do it because you had the time to observe, to really acquire, to observe, have your experience they're watching, and then you're able to do. We're the other extreme. We want to. I watched it. Now I want to do. But between the Tayata and the Bodhi, there's a whole path in between. And what shows us too, what this shows us as well, is that understanding is important, but it's only the beginning of the path. And once I've understood, I need to start putting it into practice. I need to apply it and go from a conceptual level to a non-conceptual, to gradually get to actually becoming that thing. Are you following? Right? And so when we understand something and we realize that we're not quite there, okay, where am I? Maybe I'm in that first gut there. Wow, I'm walking. I need to have my experience and little by little counteract that negative conditioning that is so deep within me, be it anger or sadness or unlimited desire or sense of inferiority. Getting all the way to the grasping at inherent existence. It's a gradual experience. And the good news among all of this is that it's possible because, one interaction after the next, little by little. This is it's our way of being, our way of speaking, our way of thinking it changes, is transformed. So after lunch, we're going to plant a tree dedicated to Keiko, and then we will conclude with the reading a reading of the Heart Sutra, where we can find where is the Tayata, where's the Gate, where's the Paragate, where's the Parasamgate, and where is the Bodhi. It's really quite simple. At the beginning of each passage it's marked Shariputra. We're going to see it together. I already want to get into it, but it's better to get into lunch. So. Is that clear so far? The Tayata, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi. So first we need to have clarity about this Tayata. What's your Tayata? What is it that you want to understand? But because let's remember something else. This is the mantra. This is the opposite mantra, whether we want to or not. We're already walking in a direction of familiarization. Today, we're in the body of inherent existence, the appearance of inherent existence. And when we start anything at all, we don't, when we do something, we don't have this choice to familiarize ourselves or not, transform ourselves or not. We're constantly in transformation. But the main point is choosing if we want to transform ourselves with awareness in a certain direction, or just change, according to the wind, or just as it happens. I mean, that's the main point here. Now it's time for our dedications.
Paragate Paraya Samgate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. Jetsun lame kutse rapten chin namkara chinle chokchur gepada losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsela taktu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin Ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chinge lop ngodrubot sol kuncho sumke trashishon.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to obtain all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Jashidele. have a good lunch, and we'll come back after the planting of the tree for the conclusion.